Hello and welcome wherever you are in the world. Thanks for taking the time to join me on this little adventure that has somehow morphed into what some people would call a podcast. Yet I never had any intentions of starting a podcast. I still have no intentions of starting a podcast. Yet I am drawn to those inspirational stories and ideas of ordinary folk doing extraordinary things, because it is in those moments of inspiration and creation and imagination that I find the most hope for the future. And in this inaugural episode, I guess you could call it, of Out of the Mud, I have a conversation with Martin, Steve, and June from a small farm in Yorkshire called Willow Edge Farm that, prior to 2020, didn't exist. It was merely a field on a slope and is now a small, thriving farm with healthy produce bringing real living people together. And it is this grounding idea that I think gives us all hope for the future. So please, wherever you are in the world, enjoy this conversation, and it would be most appreciated if you did enjoy this conversation, that you leave comments below, that you share the conversation, and that you share the inspirational story of what Willow Edge Farm and the guys over there have managed to achieve. So without further ado, thank you again and enjoy this conversation.
Smile, everybody.
All right. Yeah, hello. We're here. We made it. We made it. Thanks very much for coming, guys. I know we've tried a long time to get this going. Ever since I first saw Willow Edge Farm in my Twitter timeline, I thought, who are these folks? Who are these folks? I want to talk to these. So the story's gone from there. But thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Everyone, if you don't mind, then Martin, so I'll try and introduce everyone as best I can. So, Martin, you're the man in the middle.
Yes.
Steve, over to my right. If you can just wave, yeah, and June, obviously, over to my left. If you don't mind, then when we get going, can you give us a little bit of a heads up of who you are and how you actually ended up together? How did you find yourselves? How did you actually form this little group?
Do I start?
Yeah, you start then.
So what was it? About 2021. So we were kind of mid pandemic, and I actually started with another friend, not these two at all. I've got 'cause I live in an old farmhouse and got a field. It's about an acre next door that's never been used for anything other than having horses on it. Our neighbor put their horses on it, and another friend said, "Oh, do you want to grow some veg? Be a good thing to do, while we're during this thing." And I said, "Yeah, it's not a bad idea." So did the usual typical method of rotavating the ground and clearing it full of weeds, and we planted some veg, and it was relatively successful. A few months after that started, I got introduced to Steve via my cousin, or my cousin's husband, and he said, "No, you've done it all wrong. You needed to do it this way." Steve was obviously into his permaculture, and I think you already got some projects at the time, haven't you?
Yeah,
You've been doing, but he never had a full acre to play with, and said, "No, this is what you want to do." And we actually got started. I think it was two years ago, almost to the day, that we got going on this, and just started there. So originally there was me, Steve, and there were Dave,
Kevin.
Tom, and Kev, so three of us, and we started going from there. And since then, I was counting yesterday in advance of this, I think we've had 13 people kind of cycle through the group whilst we've been going. And we'll perhaps talk about that later on. Managing the group dynamics has been one of the more difficult things to do. But yeah, the idea was that we get between 5 and 8 people to contribute to this, and yeah, just grow, turn that acre into something useful. And we're gradually doing that.
Amazing. And am I right in thinking then, Martin? Because I remember a couple of years ago there was someone posting in one of my forums or in the Telegram group saying that they had some land somewhere down in Yorkshire, and I mean, there's been a few people
That
do
was
that,
us,
but is
yeah.
that
That
where
that was
we
us,
tried to
yeah,
get some?
yeah. And we met. I think we met
Yeah.
Kev via that group, as I remember. So yeah, it was all down to you.
Uh, Well, no, it's just people needed a place to come, and it was amazing. I've got a few stories where
Mm.
people have just connected from that, either in person or bits and pieces here and there. And it's amazing to see what it's become. So I'm really excited to get into the bottom of it. So since then you had your original group. Then along comes Steve with all of his permaculture knowledge and all of this other stuff, and then June joins in. So perhaps Steve, do you want to just tell us a bit about you then, and your how did you get in touch with this, and why were you into permaculture? Just a bit of your background, really, so we
Okay,
know where you come
so
from.
I saw a film, BBC Natural History Programme, A Farm for the Future by Rebecca Hoskins in around about 2008, which set me off on the path. From then I started growing little bits of veg in containers and things. Never had a really big garden at the time. And then from there I went on to volunteer at some other permaculture sites. Some friends of mine over in Keighley. Volunteer for them once a month for 2 or 3 years. I've been to other farms as well, where I've volunteered. If you've It's a farm in Wales called Hembank Permaculture. It's a good place to go have a look. They've got a market garden. It's a very similar setup to what we've got here now with the no dig. Yeah, so and in between coming here and starting off in pots, uh, you know, I've borrowed other people's gardens. So I've put calls out on Facebook, and at one point, I had like 5 different gardens that I was going to and planting vegetables and things.
Hmm.
And then over time, I've kind of cooled that down as this place took off.
This was taking up too much time to do all that, wasn't it? Yeah.
I was just going to ask, how do you manage to do that logistically then? Because I've got one garden reasonably sized
Yeah.
here, and I grow quite a lot in it, but that's a lot of time just to do it for one. So managing a few small plots, I mean, I've
Yeah.
thought about it myself, but how do how did you manage that, and did you
Uh,
manage to get much out of them,
Relatively
spreading yourself so
speaking,
thin?
I didn't get much out of them. Yeah, but it was just a lot of driving about and collecting materials and things. Whereas here, we've got a good setup in that we've got people now bringing materials to us. So a lot of the time when I was doing things by myself, it was literally driving around in a car all day, picking up horse shit and wood chips and things. I spent a lot of time doing that. Whereas here, we've got all those resources brought to us, so I can focus on other things.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, well, maybe we'll talk about how you actually managed to get
Yeah.
the resources later on. So that sounds great. And so you had a bit of experience, but not a lot of
So,
experience managing a full farm, which I guess brings us nicely on to June. So June, how did you get involved with this
I
crew?
never really had much of an interest in gardening up until lockdown. And I was put on furlough for
Yeah.
5 months, and basically the only thing I could do was dig in the garden and do a bit of growing and stuff. And then met a group of friends, and we were kind of trying to look for an allotment, but that proved quite difficult. Uh, so I came across sort of an advert on Facebook where Martin was advertising that they were looking for people to join the farm. And I kind of sat on it for a week or so and thought, oh, I don't know, do I, don't I? And then I thought, well, who wouldn't want to grab this opportunity? So it's probably gone by now. But anyway, I contacted Martin on the off chance and came across, and then pretty much joined straight away. And that was about August time last year,
You've
July, end of July,
you've
August.
been with us about a year now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's almost a year, and I just absolutely love it, and I love coming across, and I don't know, I kind of enjoy the weeding. Don't ask, I love
Well,
weeding.
somebody has to.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's the only
Well,
job I could do unless there's other people on board to help out. But yeah, I like to kind of get involved and do as much as I can. So even if it is trekking a wheelbarrow, push it up the hill, I will give it my best shot and try and do that. And just get involved as much as I can.
it's fantastic. I mean, it's two really important lessons sort of jump out at me there. Like the first one is you don't need all of that experience then to get involved with a project like this, like a real grassroots project. Is we chatted briefly before this one, Steve. I remember in our last chat, and I asked you the question, "How do you get started?" And you just says, "Well, you just get started." You know, so it's like yeah, all right. So it's kind of a bit like that. You don't need a lot of experience to actually roll your sleeves up and stick your fingers in the soil, which is a really good lesson because some people can be daunted by that. But the second one is, and I see this a lot at the moment, is you found and formed your little group on Facebook. And a lot of people would be like, shivering in the skin, like Facebook, you know, I don't put anything on Facebook, or I don't want to be part of that whole system. But I think there's an important lesson in there that all of these communication things exist. And whilst they do exist, we can actually use them, and we can use them for positive change. It's not all just about this, like, let's stay away from this idea or this person because, they're associated with this, that, or the other. We have this opportunity where desire and will and momentum is there for us to kind of redirect it to other things. So it's good how you managed to do that on something like Facebook, and you've turned it into what now is this amazing little farm.
I'd left Facebook entirely for those reasons, Seb, but I kind of went back. Somebody's at my door. I left Facebook but went back, for mainly so I could try and find people for this, and just you just put announcements out on the local groups, and saw who would respond. So, but you're right. I think it can act as a positive thing as well.
I'd with my previous projects, I'd never ever bothered with Facebook at all up until that point when I thought I'm not going to get an allotment and I need to do something. So I basically joined Facebook solely as a tool to find what I need, whether that's resources, or some land.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good lesson in there. And I suppose then, whilst we're on it, any of you have come across a website called Allot Me?
Not heard of that one, though.
Don't like the idea of that. They want to charge people.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, do they? Right, I don't. My understanding of it is it's kind of like an Airbnb for gardens. So if you've got a garden space, then you can rent your garden out for £10 a month or whatever. But I do know some people are renting them out for free just because their garden space, like they're too old, or they don't have the physical capability, or they don't have the tools or the time to look after the gardens. So that, from that point of view, if someone is really stuck and strapped, maybe there's something in there. But you're saying that the charging Steve, what's that about?
You look at an allotment space that's given to you by the council, you might be paying £50 a year, and then you get somebody who's got a garden and they want to rent it out, and they've no idea or concept of what an allotment charge is in terms of rent and things, and it just conflates things, and people get away with themselves thinking that they can possibly get more than it's worth, really. And I think that that's a barrier to entry for people, and I don't think that should be there.
The finances, you mean?
Because the way that I've always worked with my projects is a third of anything that I grow, if it's not my land, the person whose land it is, a third of anything that I grow that they have.
Cool, that's good. So how do you get those relationships in the beginning? Any advice on that?
Just Facebook. and talk to people. You've got to keep talking to people, even though you might be talking to someone in the hope that they're going to give you a piece of their garden. But it might just so happen that they're not really that interested, but they go and talk to another family member or another friend, and they get excited about it, and you meet someone via somebody else.
We're lucky here in that the field is right next to quite a well-used path, so we get a lot of people walking by, local people, and a lot of people have kind of seen how this has developed from literally nothing into what it is now. And it does stimulate a lot of interest, and people then, when you put something out there on Facebook, they say, oh yeah, I've been really interested in what's going on, wondered how, people have said they've wondered how to get involved, and it does, the sight of something appearing out of nothing, I think, is of real interest to people locally.
A few people have shouted over the wall on a weekend.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Oh, it's right cracking. Looks right cracking.
Yeah.
Had that. It was really nice.
That was actually going to be my next question. Have you got any heads popping over the fence and people chatting
you
on
do.
with you?
It's it's good. You get a lot of interest locally. Yeah. So
once our willow hedge or edge comes up, we won't be able to see anybody.
Yeah, that was the name. So along down by the side, because that's where the wind comes from. So we have actually the name of the farm, Willow Edge, is because we've planted willow all along that wall. So yeah, Steve's right. Once they actually grow, we won't have anybody who's able to see us. But yeah, for the moment, we're visible.
Yeah, all right. No, that's amazing, and that's also a good point. And so you are Willow Edge Farm, which you mentioned last time. Yeah, you mentioned that. So when we get the hedges up, we'll be Willow Hedge Farm. So we'll be WHF. So we'll be all right then. We're clear.
Yeah, we're clear. Yeah.
All right then, Martin. So it's kind of nice now because it takes us onto the bit about Willow Edge Farm. I want to learn all about this thing you've created. I mean, have you got anywhere people can go? I know you've got a Twitter account. Do you want to just give that a shout out now, just so people can follow the work that you're doing?
We are at Willow Edge Farm, all one word, on Twitter. I think we've got a Facebook account as well, a Facebook group as well that people can join. And I think you look after Instagram, don't you?
Yeah.
So Jim does Facebook.
Sort of.
Steve does, yeah, sort of. Steve does. Well, you do a bit of Facebook as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You do the Instagram, and I do Twitter. So what are we on Instagram?
Great.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
I'm sure we could post it later.
I'll make sure everything gets added down below. So if people do want to follow and see the pictures, because I love seeing the pictures. And the unfortunate thing with Twitter at the moment is I don't get to see a lot of what's going on. It's like you've got all of these people that you follow or that follow you, but you still find yourself in this little silo, and it's very hard, especially if you haven't got a little blue tick and you're not paying £8 a month or whatever for it, to kind of break that down. So sometimes, like you are one of the accounts that I love seeing the pictures of, and I know sometimes I've just gone there to check and there's like 20 messages that I've missed, and I think how have I not seen that?
You've been a great help to us, Seb, and I think through you we got from about single digit followers up to 500 very quickly. So thanks for your help in doing that. And I'll try and put something on every weekend, certainly during the summer. And, it's nice to finally get a bit of interaction on my posts.
Yeah. No, it's good. Like I love seeing the pictures. I love seeing the updates and stuff. And I hope, like, when we get into it and after this, it inspires people, because like the guy looking over the hedge, what's going on here? People like to see things starting from nothing, especially when, like, in June's case, she just didn't do any gardening before all of this, and then now all of a sudden she's involved in this project. Steve's getting into it. It's great. It's people need to see it, because there's a lot of people thinking, oh, what can I do now to feel good about my life, to do something about this beast that I'm facing. And I just think it's a real great project for people to see. So again, thanks for being here.
No, thank you.
All right then. So let's get into it then. So tell us about it. And what is Willow Edge Farm? Like, what is it? Where did it start? The beginning, it was a field, wasn't it? We know that, next to your house.
It was a field. We just, I mean, speaking personally, I kind of a couple of years ago, I kind of wasn't comfortable with the world, and I could, had this land, and thought it might be a good idea if I started to grow my own food. It just seemed to be, I'm an accountant by profession, and I could see that at the very least, I could see that inflation might start to might start to be a factor a few years down the line. So I just thought it was a sensible idea, and also felt that it was important that with this resource on my doorstep, that I could probably do something to that may become a focal point in the community and start to do something that was kind of community focused. So that was what I wanted to do. So it had a number of different aspects to it, I guess, but and also wanted to do something with my time at a weekend. It was back 2 years ago. It wasn't great, and yeah, just felt it was a way of actually getting out and bit of therapy, if you like. So number of different aspects for me.
Yeah. So it's a co-op, essentially, working together to grow some food. Prior to joining up with Martin, I had tried to start a co-op closer to home. I'd got like 15 people's, throw a shout out on Facebook that were interested in things. And then soon as I said, all right, let's get on with it, all these 15 people kind of like just disappeared. And it didn't really take off. So I'd had the idea of like a co-op prior to meeting Martin, and coming together. It just
Was that a formal co-op then? So your previous adventures, were they formalized in any way, or was it like kind of a
it just
handshake
started
thing?
off as an informal thing, like I say, and I got people interested in it, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah, let's do that." And then you say, "Right, okay, then let's have a meeting." Or I wrote down a brief on what we need to do and what have you, and sent out to everybody, and then nobody interacted with me then, and I went round them all and said, let's get going. And it's like, oh well, I've had a change of heart. I don't think I've got the time.
You do get a lot of that, yeah. Yeah.
Time's the biggest factor. Yeah.
Yeah, I've come across it as well a few times in the last couple of years, that it's really difficult to keep momentum going on any kind of group like this, which is why when I see anything that's kind of making it, then I can look at it and say, well, I know how hard that was to get to that point. So it's just testament to you that you've actually kept it going that
We've
far.
had to be quite ruthless is probably the wrong word. It's but we've had to be quite strict,
Honest
with people, and say, we got to a point a few months ago where we had, I think we were
some of the founding members.
They were contributing, but not to. We needed time on site to do the stuff that needed doing on site, and we had to have an honest conversation with them at that point and say, if you can't do it, then we need to probably find people that can. So we went through a bit of a refresh a couple of months ago, got up to 8 people, and we've done it again. There was some people who I think like the idea of it, but then can't commit the time, and we're now down to 5 people basically that we seem, touch wood,
So
they seemed
yeah, but they're couples.
they're couples. So yeah, we've got
count couples as one.
yeah, we've got five contributing members, if you like.
5 families.
5 families, yeah. And yeah, so we're and everybody now seems to be committed to the level that they need to be, and that's how we'll get there. I think we'll have to lose people to to find the people that are going to make it work. But so that's been quite difficult, actually, getting people who not only want to do it but can commit to do it and do it. That's been the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially over summer, because everyone seems to be really busy as well
Yeah.
weekends, and
So,
that's a tough, tricky time.
Yeah, but the thing is, the more people you've got, the less people that have to do when they're,
yeah.
within the group.
I've noticed a difference
Yeah.
since the new people have joined.
Mm.
It's a good difference.
We
Yeah.
can spread the workload out over 5 of us as opposed to just
Yeah.
3 of us coming and, battling it out to try and get it done in the weekend time that we've got.
That's it. The best days are when you've got a few people all on site together and you can just divide up and go and do your own job. Like today, we've had 4 of us there today, and it's been great. And we've got loads done. You seem to get a lot more done when there's more people on site. So
Especially
yeah.
now with the harvesting things, because stuff needs harvesting and taking out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's great. So okay, there's a good thing going on here then. So has your management improved then in that whole process? Because obviously managing people and or maybe it's Steve, I don't know who's in charge of the guy who says, right, you're the new guy, do that bit of weeding. Who's the farm manager like
Steve
that?
tells us all what to do, basically.
He puts a list down in a WhatsApp group and goes, this is what's needed doing. But because we kind of need to know we're coming across what needs doing.
Yeah.
Unless Steve's here on a weekend and he's here and he'll tell us what to do.
Yeah, some people do prefer kind of coming during the week. So we have a WhatsApp group, and as June said, we get a list of things that need sorting out, and people just get on with it, and it's great.
Yeah, I think that aspect of it, brings down the barrier of I can't do that because I don't know what I'm doing. If somebody else tells you what to do, then you don't have to think about it. You just got to go do it.
Great. So you're managing that with WhatsApp then. So does this mean you, Steve, every Monday or something, you're like checking in, right? What are the tasks for the week? And then you make a list and then you send that out, and then people just do them when they get the chance. Is that the process?
I mean, it might take some coordination of Martin, because like if people are coming across during the week, it's like the shed will need to be left open and all the things, all the polytunnel and stuff. So like that obviously will fall on Martin because he's got the keys and he's on site. But it seems to work really well.
Yeah, we've got it working.
As long as we know and people message saying when they're coming, what time, and then just lock up afterwards, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's working okay now.
So just an example then for anyone who might be interested in trying to manage something like this. You send me a message, Steve, in the morning. You've got a list of tasks. One of them is weeding. I decide I'm going to go out and do the weeding. After I've done the weeding, I then send you a WhatsApp message to the group saying I've done the weeding, and that's basically
it. Yeah, we take photos and to add to the groups, so we can see what's going on.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, simple, and it works. That's great. Everyone can understand that. And like Steve says, there's no one standing there going, well, I don't know what to do. Perfect.
Well, sometimes, like, I don't like the chickens and stuff, like putting the boards up.
Yeah.
You're saying, like, put boards so the wood chip doesn't get down. It's like, what do we use? How do we do that? But, it's just a case of then asking the questions and finding out.
Yeah.
So who's managing the chickens at night time then? Are they
We've
in a
got
coop?
one of our kind of more extravagant items was an automated door on it, so it's one that opens and shuts with the sunrise and sunfall. So so it was me, obviously, but I go up to collect the eggs every day, and that's it. But they take themselves off to bed, and the door shuts behind them.
They're great, aren't they? You can set the clock by the chickens. It's fantastic. They get up when the sun gets up, and they go to bed when the sun goes down.
I'll be honest.
Perfect.
If there's any that are actually get shut out, I don't know about it. Put it that
way. We've got some game bird feeders as well. So there's always access to food for them, and we've got a rain barrel or a big 205 litre barrel of water with some like little nipple type things on, and that's that takes a good while for it to come down, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they don't take a lot of looking after now. So that's good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the chickens are fantastic little things. I love having them around. So have you got them in a fixed coop then? You don't let them free range around the thing, that they're actually in like a cage or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big it's quite a big pen, big run that we built specially. I mean, up until when did we do that? About April time, was it this year?
Yeah.
So up until then, I had 6 that I bought last year, and I just decided now we'll get a lot more. So we built special dedicated run for them, fix the posts properly in the ground so you can walk you can walk into it. For the coop itself, my daughter, she used to have one of these playhouses type things that she never used, so that got shifted up onto the field and converted in. We put some roosting bars in there, and they live it, and some nesting boxes, and it's all working well now. So yeah, I love having them. They're really nice animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I slowly plant seeds in Martin's mind because when we first started, I said, "Are you gonna let's get some chickens?" He's like, "No, I haven't got time for chickens. No." And then a couple of months, down the line, some chickens appear, and I've got some chickens.
Yeah.
And then you say, "Oh, you think we should have some more chickens, Martin?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know if you can do that."
He's trying. He desperately wants to do meat birds. So but I'm resisting that.
So far.
Yeah, but I planted that seed, so eventually we're gonna have some.
Turkeys for Christmas. I could probably go with, but yeah, I might get there. You never know.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I love it. And then that little idea that those planting seeds, that's what it's all about. Not just in the little farm, but it's out in the wider world. If we just put those good ideas out there, hopefully we eventually get through. So Steve and Martin's a testament to that. You've got chickens. But the other good thing with that though is like chicken coops can be really expensive. So the fact that you've repurposed like an old playhouse, that's really good as well. Because if I went on Gumtree now, for instance, and did a search for playhouses, garden playhouses, there would be hundreds and hundreds of like big plastic playhouses for like a tenner, 20 quid, some free if you dismantle and collect for me. So I mean, that's a really interesting thing as well. So
I had my eye on it for a long time, actually, Seb, to be honest. I knew she didn't use it that much, so
You were doing some potting on in.
I was doing, yeah. In fact, yeah, it was last year. It was a potting on shed, so yeah, I thought, well, I know what this can be put to better use as. So yeah, the chickens got it in the end.
Yeah, but you've kept all of them for anyone. Like if any chickens get sick, Martin's kept the old.
Yeah, the old chicken coop that I did have. That's now our hospital. So yeah.
Or hotel service.
Yeah.
Who's the resident vet then?
You don't have one.
No.
You don't need a vet when you've got chickens.
Well,
just give them apple cider vinegar; they'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm the one that looks after them, I guess. So it'll be me.
They're quite robust creatures, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not endurance animals, as you keep saying.
Yep, they're not an endurance animal. You can always run down a chicken.
Well, I'm working on it.
Yeah, so, some of mine are a little bit flighty. Like they're quite quick and all. You don't realize how quick they are. But if I've got a bowl and got some food in it, I shake it and they'll follow us wherever I go. So that's my little trick. All right. So how big's the farm then, Martin? How big is the land that you've got? You said it's
probably about an acre. A lot of it it's on a slope as well, and some of it's quite a steep slope, so we don't use that. But how much would you say we've actually?
You say we don't use a steep slope, but there are soft fruit bushes planted on that steep slope.
I didn't even know that. So he's put stuff that I don't even know exists.
And fruit trees.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be used eventually. So
how much have we used now? Would you say?
Oh, don't know.
Half of it?
No,
not
even half of it.
No.
Well, depends if you. So we've got the raised beds as such, or the market garden looking beds, and the polytunnel. But then above the polytunnel, we've got what we're developing a forest garden or a food forest. If you're aware of what those are.
I am, but you just might as well tell anyone else who might not be.
Yeah, okay. So a food forest or a forest garden is a garden mimicked on a natural forest. So there's various different layers within that. So there's the canopy, lower canopy, shrub layer, herbaceous layer, ground layer, and maybe climbing vines. So in a natural forest, you'd have all those elements, but they might not all necessarily be useful. So in a forest garden, we substitute out all the canopy trees for things like nut trees, and then the lower canopy, like fruit trees, and then the shrub layer, we have the black currants and raspberries and things. The herbaceous layer, we'd have herbs and things like comfrey and lavender and things, and rosemary. And then the ground cover layer, you'd have plants like strawberries and things that will spread out and cover the floor. And then the vine layer, you might have grapevine or some schisandra or maybe hardy kiwi. Yeah, so you're basically taking a forest and replacing all the different elements in it with useful parts that will provide either food, forage, or fiber. Yeah, so we've got a strip that is essentially is slowly becoming a forest garden where we've planted various different trees and shrubs and stuff and herbaceous plants. But it's going to take a bit longer to establish that.
Yeah, I've just been out in the garden yesterday and I've got pears on my pear tree for the first time in 7 years. So I planted this pear tree like 7 years ago, and every single year I've been training it and trimming it and got it making this fancy shape up the side of the fence. And it's only this year when it's actually got pears on it. But I tell you what, they're going to be the best tasting pears ever.
It's quite exciting though, isn't it, when you start seeing the fruit, the fruits of your labor. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, especially when it's on a tree, because like the work was done 7 years ago, and yeah, there's a little bit of trimming and stuff, but because it's a tree, so it's perennial, it's going to fruit hopefully every year as long as it gets pollinated and stuff. So I like the idea of a fruit forest. It's kind of natural and low maintenance, although it does require some maintenance, obviously. But it's nice if you can have that. So it's great that you're managing to get that in. So you've got a section for a food forest. You've got strips then. So how many strips have you got? How long is your runs on your normal no dig stuff?
Our no dig is modelled on so there's a chap called JM40, a market gardener from Canada. So it's a typical setup that they have up in America, where they've got the 75 centimeters of 30-inch wide beds. So it's basically that setup.
10 meters long.
Yeah, and they're 10 meters long, and we've got around about 25 now, haven't we?
Something like that, yeah. Including 3 in the polytunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what have you got in them this year? Then what are you growing in them this year? And how did you go through the whole seeding process? Did you, as the co-op, have to buy tools, seeders? Did you have to go through all that investment to get going?
There's been some investment, hasn't there, with some tools and things.
I mean, I've put for the kind of fixed structure things, so the shed, the chicken run, and the polytunnel. I've put the money in for that. But that's it really, and then the rest of it is the running costs are covered. Every member pays £20 a month, and that covers things. We haven't really bought that many tools. We bought a scythe that
You fell out with.
I fell out with, yes, because I couldn't use it.
Practice time. It takes practice.
So yeah, that hasn't been that much tools really that we've needed.
Borrow some for the polytunnel.
Yeah,
let's borrow.
Yeah, you can do the kind of work that we do really with very basic hand tools. A fork, a spade, a couple of trowels, wheelbarrow. There's not much that you need really.
Yeah.
So in terms of actually managing the produce, the barriers are not that high. The barriers really are in getting the people together in the beginning who want to be committed and having the land. So you were lucky that Martin had the land. So that's the kind of the big one there. But if you've got a willing piece of land, then the next barrier is the people. But actually running things and planting, it's just having will and desire really.
Yeah, and possibly the knowledge on when to do things
Yeah.
and what have you.
Yeah.
Steve's good at that. He knows
Yeah.
exactly when what goes in comes out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with the timings of things or when to do things, you might end up wasting a lot of time and become disheartened and things.
Yeah. And not everything's a success, and
Yeah.
particularly this year, there's been the massive dry spell that we had, and warm weather. A lot of stuff kind of bolted during that period, didn't it? And so not everything works. And you know, the 2 years, 3 years that we've been going, it's different things have worked in different years as well. So, you know, that for me has been a bit of an education. That you know, it's finding that kind of consistency that it's really hard to achieve, isn't it?
Yeah. So like Martin's comment to me earlier this month was when we started harvesting some of the potatoes, it was a bit disappointed in the yield, and I just thought to myself, he's never happy. We didn't have any last year. We didn't have any potatoes last year. We got some this year. You know,
Loads this year.
yeah. So it's managing expectations, I think, as well.
There definitely is a false expectation that if you put stuff in the ground, food's going to grow. It took me like, I don't know, I'm still learning now, you know what I mean? Like every single year, I seem to figure something else out that I think to myself, how on earth did I not know that like 5 years ago? It's so obvious now, but so having things ready to go in. So like last week, I took out a load of carrots, having other stuff ready to go in, knowing that those carrots were coming out. Having stuff ready to go in as soon as they were coming out, I think is it's just a huge advantage, knowing that that is a process that you need to plan for, which kind of comes back to the whole idea of planning. So, you know, it's not just like plant a load of stuff and then get a big harvest, then plant some more stuff, but there is a real process of planning that has to take place. So with your farm now, and so you've got your 25 beds. So what have you harvested this year so far then right now? Because now it's harvest time, isn't it? So you'll be busy at the moment doing stuff like
I've
that.
done garlic, sugar snap peas, mange too, some potatoes.
Yeah.
What else?
Lettuce.
Yeah,
Lettuce. Loads of lettuce to come out, yeah.
The last
How have the yields been? And I know Martin's disappointed, but have you
That's
managed to kind of cover?
That's just the
okay.
potatoes, yeah, the potatoes.
Yeah.
And they were the early ones as well. So, but everything else is that we've had loads of sugar snap peas, loads of lettuce, and we've
got
got
loads of beetroot.
we've got a load of beetroot that's
Yeah,
started
and some
to come out.
radishes.
We've started to take the cabbages now. I think the cabbages are ready. No, well, the onions a lot of the onions bolted, didn't they, this year? So
There will be some, but not as many as we had last year.
yeah,
We had a really good year last year for onions.
Yeah. And then like last week when I was taking the garlic out, Steve had been on site on a different day, took a photo and said, I can't even remember what they were, because these need to go where the garlic had come out. So it's literally like planting that after the garlic was lifted.
Yeah.
What were they?
It was either cabbage or swede.
Right.
Yeah, well, something went in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else have we had?
Have you managed to share enough out then? Has there been enough to go around for people? Has everyone managed to get something?
Yeah.
We're taking, you know, like when I come, I'm taking a big crate home every week now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
What do you do with the excess then?
A lot goes to the chickens. Feed it to the chickens. They get. They've had a load of turnips today that they bolted, so they've had that. So it all kind of gets recycled. They get all the weeds and everything. It's and they just chomp their way through that.
They'll scratch in it and mix it in with the wood chips and things, and they'll manure all over it, and then hopefully, you know, they'll become a little compost making machine, and we'll get compost out of them every year to somewhere to go towards what we put on the beds each year.
Yeah.
Because we're buying in large amounts of compost.
Yeah, we do buy in a significant amount. I think we've had about eight big bags of compost this year to top the beds up. That's our biggest expense. Then it's seed. But yeah, eventually we'll get to the point that we're producing our own compost, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. And yeah, we're quite lucky because I was out walking the dog the one day and I saw this company sort of throwing a cut up tree through a chipper. I was like, oh, so what happens to the wood chip? You know, where do you take it? And he goes, well, we like to give back to the community. I was like, oh, do you think you'd be able to drop some off? And they do. So we're quite lucky in that respect. We get the wood chip kind of
Wood chip delivered, yeah.
delivered to us.
because
Yeah.
initially when we started, we were buying in wood
Having to
chips.
buy wood chip, and you were
I was like,
apoplectic at that because it's a waste product and we shouldn't have to be buying it. Yeah, so we don't know.
Yeah. So
Great. Yeah, and it's the stuff of magic, isn't it? I mean, I remember reading and looking at the sort of the back to Eden garden method, like quite a while ago now, where you basically layer. So you've got your 25 beds or your 25 strips, and what he had done in that particular example was just layer at the end of every year. Just the wood chips on top of the compost, and then he still would plant inside the soil underneath the wood chips, and over time the wood chips would break down back into the soil, and like after 2 or 3 years he stuck his hand in the soil, and the soil was just beautiful, like rich, and it was just like, yeah, okay, that's the way to do it, you know. And because it's all then, if you have, once you've got your hedges up and stuff, you can have that closed cycle where you close loop where you kind of produce on your land. I guess you're getting into regenerative stuff then, but it's amazing to see all that come to practice. Like,
yeah, if you ever watch the Back to Eden film with Paul Gauci, I don't think they make a big enough point about how he's using his chickens, because they place the emphasis on the wood chips, but he's basically got his chickens making compost for him, and that's what he's adding into his garden again. So what we're doing here is essentially the same. It's just adapted a bit more for our climate.
which is, yeah, then the number one thing. It's adaptation and doing things locally. Like, people say to me, well, I've planted this thing and it didn't grow. And I'll say, well, yeah, well, is anyone else around you growing that thing? You know, and they'll say, well, no, you know. It's, why do you think? You know, look around. I mean, we're lucky in the UK because we've got these allotments where they're full of like old guys who've just got 30 years of experience and they know what grows. But if you look around and see what grows in your local area, so where I am in the northeast of England, you know, we've got hazelnut trees, apple trees grow quite well, you know, but some of the hotter stuff like the tomatoes and stuff I have to grow under cover, and it's just, if you look around, you can see what grows. So that's really important to note.
Yeah.
Like, and
yeah.
That's one of the basic permaculture principles. You know, observe before you interact, and I
yeah.
think that skill of making the observations is lost on some people. You know, they're
Because
not.
we're too busy. Everyone's too busy. Everyone's too busy to get out the door and get on the road and get into work and stop at Starbucks and get a coffee. It's like everything's whizzing past everyone so fast that no one stops to take time to actually look around and say, actually, it's a beautiful day. No one stops. And I think gardening and growing and just interacting with nature, it has this instinctual ability to return that feeling to people, and I believe that's so important right now. And I think it's one of the many reasons why everything that's happened. It's kind of a kick up the arse to say, come on, you know, just go outside and breathe, look around, you know, and
Completely agree.
We just need to reconnect.
You know, there's lots of studies that have been done that prove the microbiome in the soil improves, you know, people's mental health and things, and their general health as well.
Well, I don't know if you might be able to help me with this one, but I remember not so long ago reading a study, and I can't remember, but I will put the link in the description below when we get this done. But there was a study what was carried out on tomatoes, and there was a strip of tomatoes grown, and adults tended the tomatoes in a greenhouse, and there was another strip of tomatoes grown, and children tended the tomatoes in that greenhouse. And over the course of the year, the children were in there talking and playing and like messing on with the tomatoes, and the adults would go in like once or twice a day, they would water them, and then they would come out. And when it got to the end of the sort of the experiment, the tomatoes that the kids had grown had different nutrient properties to the tomatoes that the adults had grown. So the kind of conclusion of the experiment was that nature seems to have an ability to produce what we humans need at the time we need it. So obviously it's the big grey area of why the kids got the nutrients they did, the different nutrients in the tomatoes. Was it because they talked and played? Was it because they were younger and the plants knew they needed more nutrients? You know, all the soil and everything was supposed to be identical, but it's just it's an interesting idea. And I think to myself when I go outside and I see dandelions everywhere, and I think that's there for a reason. Like it's trying to give me dandelions for a reason. And you think about how many toxins we find ourselves with, and you know, maybe the dandelions are trying to help. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
No, dandelions are.
yeah, like if you look at a piece of land and you can read the soil type on the land to some extent by what's growing on it, you know, compacted soils tend to grow things with big, thick, deep taproots like docks and dandelions and things. It's nature's way of trying to break up the soil structure to, you know, to improve it. And then like you have to look at when things grow and what have you. Like, because asparagus is one of the first things that comes up in the spring for perennial vegetables and things. And it's so, you know, highly nutrient dense. And the reason it is why it's probably highly nutrient dense is because you know, everybody has gone through the hunger gap and they need that mineral content from the
That's good.
from the things that are coming up first. Yeah.
There's a good little story in here then that's jumping in my head, Martin, and that's last time we spoke, you told me that you were like overweight and you were unhappy and stuff. And now when I'm seeing you here on this camera and you look all trim and all this, I think, well, has the garden, what was it, this connection with nature and getting involved that caused that change? Did you become healthier because of this?
I mean, I was so pre-COVID. I was nearly 21 stone. We certainly wouldn't have had three of us on the sofa, put it that way. So
he's half the man he was.
half the man I was.
So
I started on a low carb diet and lost whatever it was. Yeah, about 10 stone, less than 10 stone, 9.5 stone. But I think this has helped to keep it off. Certainly, I still like beer far too much, but I equally I like getting out in the garden, particularly on a day like today when it's sunny and there's no better feeling. I think that undoubtedly helps with keeping it off. I mean, not least because you're doing a load of exercise, so yeah, it has helped. The last few years has changed. I think has changed everybody, and certainly from that perspective, it's changed me for the better.
Yeah, and the produce, do you think it's anecdotally, does it taste good? Do you feel more full? Can you vouch for any of that?
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. June gave us a recipe the other night for beetroot shakshuka, and we tried it on Friday. It was absolutely superb. Really was superb. So another use for beetroot that I didn't know about. That's fun. Beetroot and eggs. So
yes,
yeah, you can't beat it. It's great.
some natural yogurts on top. Yeah.
Sounds lovely. Sounds absolutely lovely. I love beetroot as well for that reason, and I never used to. But yeah, it's got loads of medicinal properties as well, hasn't it? Like it unblocks or widens the blood vessels and stuff to increase blood flow through the body and help oxygenate your body. Yeah, it's a nice power and eggs as well. Power food, another food that we've been told gives us heart attacks and we shouldn't eat too many of. Every time I hear that now, I'm thinking I think it's just the total opposite. Yeah, it's just backwards. It's just backwards.
My omelettes have about 6 or 7 eggs in these days because I've got so many.
Yeah, great. No, it's amazing. All right, so we'll get to you mentioned £20 per month people pay. So how are you managing the finances of it? How do people contribute that way? Did you have to set anything up to get that side of things going?
Yeah, we've got a bank account. So most people just set up as a standing order. I mean, as I said, I'm a trained accountant, so I do the accounts, make sure the
Very
books balance to the penny. So yeah, I do all of that, and seems and 20 quid a month seems to be about the right level to cover running costs. We are selling surplus eggs now, so that gives us. I mean, hopefully over time it'll give us more than just the covering of the cost of the feed, but feed is expensive and it's gone up. But we're gradually getting some kind of return customers for the eggs coming back, and I don't know, probably got space for a few more chickens as well, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, we're getting about 20 eggs a day, so I'll collect those, and my wife will. She's got people at work. You've got people that you're getting them to. You both, haven't you? I think. Yeah.
I've got
So
a few, but not.
yeah, and we sell them at cost, around about cost to people within the group, and at a small profit to people external to the group, which brings in some additional funds, and yeah, definitely kind of covers the cost of feed.
Yeah.
And
But
bedding,
yeah.
You want to do veg boxes as well, which that was supposed to be this year, but
It was, but
not yet.
just things have happened, and I don't think it's gonna, you know, we weren't
It's been a funny year for growing.
Yeah, we weren't quite ready at the time, and we've had trouble with things starting, and then the lack of rain that we had in the early part of the year, growing season, I think really slowed things down. And then we've had some quite heavy bits of rain, and that things seem to have caught up now and things. But yeah, but it's a completely different beast to try and create enough produce to create a box and to sell it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the aim. It's
Yeah.
something we'd like to do.
Mhm. Yeah. So here's a question then, Martin. If you're so tight on the funds, how did Steve manage to get some herbaceous bushes and stuff in that you didn't know about? He snuck some fruit trees in or something?
Yeah, so I've got my friends over in Keighley, their small holding that they had some plants and things, and they allowed us to go over one winter and take loads of cuttings and things. So we took loads of cuttings of soft fruit and what have you. We took some scion wood from their fruit tree, from their apple trees and things, and then we bought in some whips from the nursery, and we had a go at doing some grafting ourselves. Some of which has been successful, some of which hasn't. So the fruit trees that we have got, the vast majority of them are ones that we grafted. So it only cost us like £3.50 for the whip that we bought in, and then we've collected scion wood from various different places and done some grafting. Some from my friends, I should give them a shout out. So they've got a small gardening company, and they're called Those Plant People. Pippa Chapman and Andrew Chapman, good friends, and they've been really helpful in giving us things to get started with, which is probably due to the fact that I volunteered for them and didn't, take anything from them for years, So swings and roundabouts. You help people, and they'll help you, and what have you. So.
Yeah, it's another fantastic lesson there, isn't it? Like, it's that community, what you're building. You're not just building a farm, you're building a network. You're building kind of a network of people that can work together and share, and it takes us back to that, I suppose, that more natural state of being that we kind of lost over the last few years. Yeah, great. So I'll try and get this into some sort of order now. So I love hearing how it's all run, but the biggest question for me now, I know people are going to think, well, okay, it sounds really daunting, we need the land, but what are the biggest kind of takeaways, the biggest lessons that you learned from the whole thing? What would you say, like, these are the 3 things you should do if you want to do this?
Be patient.
Yeah, that was my first.
Be patient,
Yeah.
which isn't that's mine anyway. That's not my biggest virtue.
He's not that patient. No, but really, considering where we are, we've moved quite quickly.
Yeah.
You know, Martin's saying be patient, but you know, because we've had willing people here, you know, that are willing to get stuck in and what have you, we've been able to move quite quickly. And like you say, we've had that momentum. And even through the winter months, we're doing things. We might be not doing it as often, but you know, we'll be coming in when it's absolutely chucking it down and it's freezing, and we'll be doing bits.
Yeah.
Whether it's planting some trees or some soft fruit or whatever, yeah, or moving something about.
Yeah, because it's grown loads since I joined in August. I mean, the polytunnel's gone in, the shed's come with the chicken coop, and the bigger chicken coop after the first are born. More beds have gone in. So just within almost a year, it's really it's expanded loads.
What's your
I think also patience.
patience? Yeah.
And I've learned to kind of look through the things to find the weeds rather than skim past. So sometimes you've got to take a closer look at things to kind of see if that makes sense.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another life lesson there, isn't there? You got to look through the things to look through the forest to see the trees. Sort of same for weeds, same for people.
Weeds to see the
which
weeds.
is
They're there.
yeah. And that's sort of the other lesson that I was thinking you've learned. What you mentioned earlier was just how to actually raise awareness for the project and have those honest conversations with people that no one likes to have. No one really likes to sit down with people and say, look, I'm sorry, mate, but you're not pulling your weight. Can you give a bit more? I mean, no one likes to have those conversations. So that's something I think you've probably learned. And would that affect now your desire to bring more people in? Is there an extra filtering process that would take place? Or is it still, if you're interested, yes, we're happy to have you along. It's just a trial. We'll see how it goes, see if you like it first and foremost, and then if we can work together, we'll do something. Is any of that changed?
I think we would do it as a trial period now, and maybe give it a couple of months or something, and then they'll know and we'll know, and you can both go your separate ways if it's not working. So but at the moment, I think we're probably kind of happy with at the level we're at. We'll try and get this group established now, before we bring anybody new in. I think it's working well now what we've got, and I don't think we really want to disrupt it for the time being.
No. I think we've for this year. I think we've probably reached a balance now that's going to keep us moving forward, and no one person is going to get overwhelmed or to the point where it feels like drudgery. Things are going to happen because there's enough of us here to get things done. There's going to, like you say, that momentum going to keep us moving.
So is the people limit then? So you've got 5 families, 7 people you mentioned earlier on. Is the limit there, is that because you've got a nice little working unit, there's enough work for everyone to do, and you don't need any more than that at the moment because you're happy with the level of produce and the level of work. So it's like kind of that sweet little spot. You think you're in a sweet spot at about 5 families, 7 people.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much.
Works well.
Yeah. Okay, because people can grow things very large, very quick, and then there can be too many strings to pull, and it can get a little bit tough. So I think patience, slowly, and if you hit a sweet spot, don't go past that because things will start to lose.
Run with it. Go with what works. Yeah.
No point being.
Yeah. Our first year was we only started with 4 beds, and then the second year we went from 4 to
15, was it?
15, yeah, and then this year we've gone to 25-ish beds. So
it's amazing. It's a lot. You've done a cracking job, which is why I love it. We must, when we publish this, we must get some photos.
Martin's got some good pictures from one of those bedroom windows You can see the full field from when we first started
Oh,
to
I
each.
haven't taken one of those in a while.
Yeah, you need to do it before. Yeah.
before and after. Yeah, and now
So you can see the progress that's made over time. Yeah, I was quite a small spot, and now it's expanded.
Yeah.
I'd love to share those. Like, I think that will really inspire people to try and roll the sleeves up. Like, which I guess takes us to, you know, the kind of the wrap up stage. You know, where we're at the end of this now, and you know, what are you planning on doing next? I mean, what do you want to do next? Obviously, you want to keep going, but you mentioned boxes and all of that stuff. Is that part of the plan? Are you just happy to keep it going?
No, just keep moving forward, really. You know, keep putting plants in the ground and developing things, and you know, making the forest garden a bit more productive and and what have you, and you know, doing some seed saving of our own and things,
Yeah.
and
Composting.
composting, and you know, we'll just keep plodding along, doing a little bit over time.
You convinced me to get some more animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of meat birds.
Some game birds. Well, no pigs or goats or anything yet, though.
I'd actually quite like to have pigs.
Yeah.
Must admit.
Pigs would be a nice idea, but if a pig ever got out into the field, it would be carnage.
Yeah. That's really true.
We wouldn't have a field. Wouldn't have it left.
Yeah.
That's just one pig. Oh dear.
Fair enough, fair enough. So at the moment then, you're not looking for new members, you're not looking for new recruits, you don't have a website or anything like that, but you are more than happy for people to keep up with what work you're doing. So
Yeah.
Martin, your Twitter account we've mentioned, Steve will drop your Instagram account or the Willow Edge Farm Instagram account down below this so people can follow it. I'm definitely going to send people over there because I think it's a story people need to see.
One of the things that I would really like to do is to run a training from the farm, you know, for interested people, so we can share our model with other people and get. I'd really like to see our project seed other projects of a similar nature. So that, you know, that's another thing that I'd really like to see happen.
That would be fantastic. It would be my dream as well that this conversation leads to things like that. So what I'll do is obviously I'll leave this open below for anyone to make a comment if they're interested in training courses at Willow Edge Farm at some point in the future to get in touch at one of the accounts that we've mentioned here, and there'll probably be links and stuff to various things and just build up that interest. You know, check the Facebook page. And if I think it'd be amazing. I would love to say there's at some point in the future there's a little manual. This is the step by step to Willow Edge Farm from when we had 1 acre of grass to now where we're feeding 5 to 7 families every year. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. It'd be great to. I mean, if we could kind of seed others, you know, get others started on things like this, it'd be great because it really is a good thing that we do, and I think it'll. I enjoy it. I'm sure many people will find it fulfilling to do something similar.
Yeah. So if someone does want to be interested in that plan, that blueprint, what's the best way to get in touch with you then? Who is there someone to email? Could they email you, Martin, or you, Steve? Would you like that now? Or?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, if they could. We'll forward on. You've got our email address, so yeah. You could use that.
Yeah.
Or just message us directly through Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, that's amazing, and I think that covers most of the questions that I had. So if there's anything final that you wanted to say to anyone or you know, anything like that, then feel free. Now's the chance. If not, you know, we'll say goodbye.
Get stuck in.
Just go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Don't think about it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
I absolutely agree, and that covers almost every aspect of everything that we're facing. Anything that is a problem always has a loophole. There is always a solution to every single thing that is sticking in front of you. Barriers only exist when you can't figure out how to get around them.
Yeah. Have you heard the permaculture axiom? The problem is the solution.
No, I hadn't heard that one, but yeah, it is absolutely, yeah, that is it. That is it. The problem is the solution.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thanks very much, Martin, Steve, and June. I know it's
Thank
taken
you.
a
Thanks
bit of
very much,
time, and
Smith.
I've loved it, and I hope it leads to many seeds grown.
Brilliant.
Good.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks
Cheers.
very much.
Bye.
Speak soon.